consumers are so inundated with offers and promotions and reasons to buy that a lot of times it takes a little bit of like, no, hang on. Let's walk through this, what this really means to you to be able to cut through the clutter.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, to be able to show them that advantage. And we've spent tons of time training on that.
Hey everyone, welcome to Crossroad Conversations with the Lewis Brothers, where we aim to share real stories about running a successful family business, working through adversity, and pouring back into the community that keeps our door open. We're your hosts, Matt, Shelby, and Taylor, and we bring you relevant local business advice and automotive insights that are sure to change the way you look at running a business, and maybe even throw in a plug for you to do business with us.
Welcome back, episode 35, Crossroad Conversation with the Lewis Brothers. We're your hosts, Larry, Mo, and Joe.
Yeah,
all back. However it goes. Episode 35, fully diving in. Today, we want to talk about playing to win, because nobody likes to play to lose.
No, they don't want to.
You don't plan on that. Understanding your competition in business, and we'll fully break that down. Understanding your competition, how to analyze it, how to understand the advantage of competition, the disadvantage of competition, all the parts and pieces that we go through on a daily basis of how to stay relevant, how to stay hungry, how to make sure that you win. So we'll have fun diving into that.
Hey, before we do that, let's jump into a recap of last week. That was episode 34 about mastering the operational side of your business. We had a fun time diving into that, and really a lot of personal journey there that we're still on as well. Is how do we work on the operational side of our business? And I would just say, I won't go into all of it, but I'll just tell you, it had a lot to do with letting go and empowering others and working on your business instead of inside of your business. So that's a really cool episode. Make sure you go back, check that out, and then, of course, any of the others. As always, find all of our business stuff and all of our inventory on lewissuperstore.com or crossroadconversations.com and get all that content. Taylor, we got something to talk about that we drove.
Oh, we got something we got to talk about, and I love this. I love modern technology. You know, the old muscle head in anybody, they're like, I got to have a big motor and more power.
Sure.
It's wrong. Yes, you can have a bigger motor with more power. What I really like is the new Hurricane motor, and they put that in the all-new 25 Grand Wagoneer.
In the Grand Wagoneer. Now, that Hurricane motor it's an inline six. Yeah, so some old school car guys, torque. What do they talk about on the 306 Ford?
Break it down for us.
The torque. The torque, the inline of the torque, and then they put twin turbos on it. So then you get the benefit of a 6-cylinder fuel mileage. You get the inline instant torque of that turbo lag it takes over, but then the two turbos take over. Now that Hurricane motor, it's been in the vehicles for a little over 3 years now, but new for 25, and that's why we're talking about it, is you get the HO version in the Grand Wagoneer. That means it's 540 horsepower.
That's solid.
540 horsepower.
You remember back in the day when 500 was just a big number? Like if you hit that was like sports car was.
Yeah, no, that was GT500 supercharged 504 Mecca.
500 horsepower.
Now you've got your family truckster with 500 horsepower.
540
I like that.
I do too.
If you run behind or just need to get in the left lane and hammer down,
you can just go.
Yeah, I mean as fast as you can to the speed limit.
Yeah. So a couple other things I want to point out with that, and one of y'all can help me out with what the horsepower is on the new Escalade V. It's
6 something.
Well, we'll call it 650. Taylor's going to look it up. So on the V, we'll talk about the horsepower there, and there's a reason I'm comparing the two. So for 25, the Grand Wagoneer that we have in stock has the 540 horsepower, which the HO motor you find in the RHO. It gets massaging seats, heated and cooled seats, heated second row seats. I already said massaging. Heads up, the 22-inch wheels, air ride suspension, tri-pane moonroof, and they drastically dropped the MSRP.
Oh, they went down?
They went up in horsepower, up in content, and where a Grand Wagoneer used to start at $105,000, these start at $89,000. So 89,540 horsepower. And people always talk about, well, the horsepower of the Escalade V, which is
682.
Which is 682, but you're over $150,000.
165.5.
165.5. That's a $76,000 difference in price tag.
Good night.
So that's all I'm saying is for all your motorheads out there, you could do a whole lot with 70 grand.
We got more for less.
We got more for less. I just had to dissect that. Thanks for letting me do that.
That's pretty solid value.
That is solid.
Yes, absolutely. Hey, so diving straight into the first topic there, identifying and analyzing your competitive landscape. So our local people that are in the market here that do the same business we do, kind of identifying everything they do. And we're going to go over, not only about the good things that we necessarily have worked together with, but sometimes we've seen some things that other people have done that we didn't necessarily like. So, you go talking about our market and everything else of everybody that's in it. What are some of the things that y'all have seen?
I think first off, before we even go into the details, we've got to talk about this. Is if you're not studying your competition, if you're not looking at your competition in your landscape, you're not winning.
Yeah.
If you think you just know it all and you're the best thing ever, there's other people out there that have great ideas.
Yes.
I can't tell you, and I'll just go ahead and tell you this and the rest of our audience, I can't tell you how many email blasts and how many preferred customer lists that I'm on of competitors.
That you're not actually in the market to buy from them.
I'm not in the market to buy from
But
them.
you're going to go ahead and act like you're a shopper.
For sure.
That is how you understand or rip someone's business or to get a pulse on what's going on.
You really do. And I remember we were sitting at a Ford meeting 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago. And the CEO was up there talking about, of course, it was when the electric boom was going on.
Boom,
One
baby.
of the things that Ford did, they had multiple people up in their executive office go through the process of buying a Tesla to see how was that? Where do they not have friction points that we do? You'll see all the time when manufacturers do. They'll go out and buy a Toyota, or they'll buy a Ram, or they'll buy a Ford. Or when they were coming out with a Bronco, they bought multiple Jeeps and just tore them completely down.
It's funny. So in college, one of my roommates was a Ferrari dealer, was also a Chevy dealer. And I remember when they were coming out with the new Z06, the C6 Z06
Okay.
in 06. And I remember him talking about the engineers at Chevrolet had bought a couple Ferraris because they were going after that market to understand. So then you saw that car versus like a 430 at the time, and you saw, wow, those brakes look a whole lot like that.
You bet.
Wow, that design and the look of that. And then you see the C8, and it really looks like a 458 or something of that style. If you're not paying attention to the competition, if you are just blind to that, you will be blindsided.
So there's a time to wear each of those hats, and as an entrepreneur, you know that. If we're in a meeting with our whole team, boom, the sales hat's on, nobody does it better.
Yeah.
Here's what we do.
Right.
But then also you got to take that hat off, put the other one on of let me study because there's other good people out there in the world. Let's see what they're doing. Let's see what their website looks like. I'll tell you, our management team, anytime we get done with the end of the month, and even if we killed it and we were ranked number 1 or number 2, the manufacturer always provides us a detailed of who sold what.
Yeah.
So was it half tons? Was it SUVs? Was it cars?
Yeah.
And there's always segments that we didn't win in.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, and I'll highlight those, give them to my sales managers, and say, I want you to go look at their website. What are they doing? Is it trim level packages? Is it color? Is it pricing? Is it merchandising? Where they beat us here? Even if you would have won, there's always opportunities within the segment to identify that. But you can't do it if you don't have the correct lens to figure out what are they doing better than us.
So a couple things to break out there. There's a right time to do that. It's not during the sales meetings. It's with the right people that can switch in between. Because otherwise they have a hard time. Then when they're talking to a customer, they'll say, well, we got beat by so-and-so in escapes, and they're like, well, why the heck am I here, right?
Yeah.
So it's the right place and it's the right people.
It's the right people.
The second thing is you have to, so understand of locality. Like we have, and locality means our zone.
Yep.
Like what our manufacturer sets our zone. And we want to sell all that we can, but we realize we cannot eat the whole elephant.
Correct.
We cannot, and that's why the manufacturers are a little over 3,000 Ford dealers in the United States to be able not only to sell and to service and to be close enough that it's not an inconvenience. So we look at our local competitors of our McClartys and Superiors, and we have a relationship with those dealers.
Wow.
And generally the conversation is there's enough people out there that we can all get our fair share.
There really
let's
is.
not undercut each other. Let's all make sure that we're offering a fair offer to our customers and cover your backyard. That doesn't mean you don't learn from them. You know what I mean? You still see what's going on. So you're not saying, hey, we're at this price and then they're at this price. And when you say, hey, I missed out on Escape or F-150 or Bronco, or we were doing something good here, it's not to say, hey, let's go try to steal some of their customers. No, we just need to make sure that are we doing a good presentation when someone comes in for RAV4, or we're showing them Escape. You know, and so there's opportunity there, but it's not saying, hey, let's go market in their backyard.
No, that's so important to know, and you started to hit the nail on the head there. At no point whenever we were talking about, do you try to absolutely just smash competition competitors in your area. Be competitive.
Yes.
I want to be competitive and I want to compete with them. But we've been in business for over 79 years, and we've done that by building relationships, not tearing other people
It's
down.
a long-term game.
We're still going to be, because there's been plenty of dog and pony shows that have come through, and they want to be the best, and they run to the bottom.
So like a new
and
manager shows up
yeah.
at a store, and they say, I want to be the crazy lowest price.
And guess what? They're not in the business anymore. They're nowhere to
It's
be
not
found.
sustainable.
No, it's not sustainable. So we realize that. We do good business because there's give and take. There's a lot of times we find ourselves reaching out to them to ask questions as well.
And I think that's important. Like once I'm going to go into two segments here, but let me first talk about what you were talking about. Is it's important to understand your boundaries and to respect those, so you don't ruin a relationship.
Yep.
And when we talk about that, you take the McClartys and the Superiors and all of those around here, the auto parks, the Cranes, we have a relationship with them, but we also respect that. And we're not calling them saying, hey, how did you put 500 more in that vehicle?
No.
Or, hey, how'd you price it at this? No, that's the competitive side, and we can be competitive there. But what you don't want to do is mess up a relationship. So then when you're interviewing somebody that's in an important role, like let's say it's CFO or somebody that handles money, and they work for one of your competitors, you need to be able to have the relationship to call and get the real advice from somebody, because if they were embezzling money or if they were doing something that would hurt your business.
Yeah, you'd want to know that.
So I get those calls from the different people, and we respect it, and it goes two ways. Yeah. We're not talking about, hey, would you deal or trade this to me?
No,
or what would you do here?
It's a larger decision. It's not based off of one simple transaction.
Yeah.
Think about a sports game, like when there's two quarterbacks going against each other.
Sure.
They both want to win, right?
Oh, yeah.
But at the end, they can understand the craft of the guy that won and the guy that gave really good effort. With good sportsmanship,
yes,
they're going to shake hands and say, I appreciate your game. Like, that was solid. You guys did well. We did a little bit better.
Yeah.
So there's just some relationship in that. So understanding the competitive landscape, and we can all learn from each other.
Yes.
You said Bronco and Jeep. Think about how long Jeep was in that segment by themselves. Bronco showed up. What'd that do to Jeep?
I know. That made them elevate as well.
They didn't even have a backup camera.
No backup camera, no power seat. They didn't have to.
What about the mirrors?
All of that.
No power seat, no backup camera. The mirrors were attached to the doors, which seems irrelevant until you take the doors off.
Exactly.
No power seat, like a lot of things. And then so you're like, what the heck? They're about to take over my segment. It's like, well, you better level up. You better have a better product.
Yes.
And you better offer a better service.
Yep.
And then you get to win.
You get to, and if somebody does level up past you, don't look for ways to legally go after them or this or that. Go, okay, well then how can I do it better? They pushed me to be better.
Right.
So what I first started talking about there is people that are in your industry within your locality, which is what Taylor was talking about. Now, as an entrepreneur, you got to know all this, who to ask the right questions to, because one thing I have found common versus all industries with entrepreneurs is they love talking to you about it. Now, you've got to gain their respect first, and the door's got to be open. But once the door's open, they love nothing more than to help other people be successful entrepreneur-wise.
Oh, yes.
But there's certain questions that you can ask people that aren't in your competitive locality, that are still in your part of business.
In your segment. Another Ford dealer, another landscaping business that's not a direct competitor, but understands the trials and tribulations of what you're going through in current business. The cost of wages or the cost of product or whatever it is, then you can really get into the heart of it.
And so let me give you an example here. Let's talk about marketing.
Okay,
let's talk about marketing. So your local people, the Everetts, the McCartys, the Cranes, we're not going to call them up and say, hey, tell me about that mail piece you just sent out. Is that working?
That's like gentleman rules of like that. No, that doesn't.
You don't do that. But some of our connections up in Missouri and down in Texas and on the East Coast, West Coast, we bounce those ideas off of them all the time.
Hey, if you use this vendor, what kind of ROI did you get?
And they openly give us that.
Because
and
it's
we do
a
the
two-way
same.
street.
It's a two-way street. Like, hey, here's what I've found that we've done in service. And every industry has some type of association, or I don't know that I've found an industry yet that doesn't have a convention out in Vegas once a year.
Oh, but
you know what I mean? All of them do. That then you can connect with like-minded people that are rowing in the same boat. They have the same struggles and issues. And that's how you learn from your competitive landscape if you get out of your locality, and it'll help you grow your business.
What you said there is so important to know, because so many people that are small business owners getting in the middle of it, they get closed-minded and say, no one else's business is like mine. They don't understand. No, you may have a little bit of different, the culture may be different, but the whole aspect and the people around the U.S., you go to a different convention, they're dealing with the same problems you are.
Let's say you don't have time. You say, I'm just starting my business. I can't go out to Vegas, whether financially it doesn't work or get with those associations. Just start with your local chamber.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the amount of people that I sit on the board on the chamber with that have different businesses, from jewelry to real estate to medical. We talk about the same stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Now, that's where we're not in the same competitive landscape, but we're both in business. We both deal with employees. We both deal with benefits. We both deal with inventory turn. And we've had some people from those industries that have come to our sales meeting.
Yeah.
Because we said, hey, come, let us help pour into you, because then we know when we get ready to ask, we've already made those deposits.
Yeah, hopefully so. And you have to keep in mind, like, people that are disrupting in your current business. And by disrupting, I mean they're shaking it up enough that it's making a difference. And so it's funny, we were talking about something at the gym this morning. I was like, man, this is such a simple, it was a recovery tool. It's just a piece of plastic. It had some different bumps on it. And I was like, man, somebody's making a living off of this right here.
Sure.
It's like, but this thing is easy to knock off. And so the guy I was talking to, he's like, well, I mean, God, they knock off everything. I was like, yeah, they do. If you export it, someone sees it, they remake it, and they sell it. He's like, how do you win at that? I said, you don't have to change the product, and you don't have to lower your price. You just have to be in front of more people, do what you say you're going to do, and just continue to stand behind that and guerrilla market the thing. So I was like, someone else is going to come along and offer, a cheaper oil change or a cheaper car, and you just stay steady on your course, stay relative, stay within the pricing. But we've all heard the phrase, the cheapest is the cheapest for a reason.
Sure.
And I'll be the first one to say, bought plenty of cheap things. I'm like, you fool.
Just to irritate you.
Yeah, like, no, just like, if it's really cheap, it's really cheap for a reason. It doesn't have the support behind it.
Yeah.
You doesn't have a phone number you can get a hold of somebody. Or, they'll roll up the carpet next week when you go back and you need some help. And I'm not talking about rolling out the carpet. I'm saying rolling up the carpet, take the sign off the building, and they're nowhere to be found.
Let's go back and talk about that in local market. You talked about oil changes. Okay, so we know big oil changes. That's always a hot topic of, you see all these quick oil changes on every corner, because it's what means something of going through. What's something locally we've seen from a business from like Everett that's been local that ran an oil change special?
Yeah, so the idea of oil changes happens 3 times a year.
Yep.
The idea is to make it simple, to make it easy, and to make it cost effective. And so we saw people that were new to the market, new to our market, not new to the automotive industry, trying to get more people in their door. And so the cost of our oil change generally is roughly in the $80 to pay for the labor and to pay for the product. And our key-to-key time is roughly about 34 minutes. And if someone says they can do it faster, just arguably, I don't think that the fluid can drain that fast, because we have multiple teams that do it. But we saw people come in and say, we will do an oil change for $9.99. And it got so below the threshold of that. The idea is to have a very competitive, low-price oil change to get them in the door, and then you get to wow them with the customer service, our car wash, just a good experience, create relationships when they have a bigger issue or want to upgrade. But we saw at that crazy low threshold, there was no loyalty whatsoever.
No.
It was a diminishing value.
I think that's important. So we studied that. We identified it. One of our competitors was doing it. They're no longer doing it. So if you're listening, looking for the $9.99 oil change, it's not there anymore.
there.
But and it's a retention tool.
Yeah, it is.
It's no different than Best Buy. Their margin on TVs is very, very slim, but their margin on the mounting, their margins on
All
the
the other
cables,
stuff,
that's
yeah.
high.
Yep.
So the oil change is no different. When we looked at $9.99, we're like, okay, we're going to lose $70-something per oil change
So that's over 1,000 occurrences per month.
per occurrence. And then we looked at okay, who will they give the $9.99 oil change to? Well, they were giving it to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, every make, every model. And if you're listening, you're like, well, that sounds great. Well, hang on, you got to connect this. If the goal is to get somebody in the door to build a relationship with them, they're more likely to come back to you if they own the brand you're selling.
Because you can help them. If there's a PCM programming issue
Yes.
on a Chevrolet, we have super smart individuals, but they're not in tune with that. So if you've created that relationship, you're like, hey, you need to go to the auto bar.
Then you're good to go. So then when we looked at that, we're like, they're now clogging their whole system. Their RO count shot through the roof. But over half of the VINs that are going through there aren't even their core make.
No.
So it looks initially like great RO count, low profit, and you could have the argument of I'm going for the long game here to build our units in operation, which you guys have heard us talk about before. But it wasn't reality because those people weren't coming back.
No.
And we saw it. We had some people that had other brands, makes and models that went there. I'd like to say loyal customers, but that went there
You can't blame them.
and got their oil change. As soon as they shut the faucet off at the $9.99, they were right back with us.
Yep.
But there was no extra added benefit.
Yeah.
Because there were so many people, it was flooded. Their service advisors couldn't handle it. They didn't. We see that in companies growing all the time, that they can't handle to properly give the customers, the time that they need, the good experience that they expect. And I don't know how much you can expect with a $9.99 oil change, but they didn't lower their expectations. So we saw some Google reviews start to plummet. And so instead of just chasing that number, we said, hang on, let's learn from that.
Yeah, sure.
Let's learn from that.
And so, and then one of the things, let's go off of that for a second. One of the things we're doing from, hey, we want to be competitive. We don't mind losing a little bit of money or not making any money on oil changes. It's a retention tool. We get to build a relationship with the customer. As we started looking, and we went really simple on this, when we were doing our service micro meetings, we said, let's identify, okay, here's the amount we're doing in the quick lube, but now let's break it down. When are those people coming? So now our guys have a simple tally sheet they turn into the manager of two, I think they're 2 hour time segments, 2 or 3 hour time segments. So then we could identify if we're going to run a special, it needs to be on the day of the week that we have the lowest amount of traffic or the timetable that has the lowest.
Okay, so let's break that down. If we're going to pop the hood and show them the internals,
Okay.
right? Like, yes, it has nitrous. Let me show you how it works. We identified on Wednesdays, it was our least amount of traffic. So if you're going to, I've said this many times, if you're going to give something, you need to get something in return.
Correct.
We were paying for all of our technicians to be here, and Wednesday there was a lot of downtime. I don't know why it was Wednesday, but we did this for about 3 months of a trial period of just tally marks. So I said, hey, let's do a $50 off promotion, which is still going on.
On Wednesdays.
Come by and see us. $50 off an oil change. It helps us fill that shop,
Yes.
and it helps us fill it, and you get to save some money.
But you can't do that unless that came out of studying our competitive landscape, but then adjusting for what made sense to us, not making all skate, identify where can we actually handle it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that took months behind the scenes.
And I'll tell you, studying across the industry, we said, at Sonic, this from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, you can get half-price drinks.
Happy hour.
And we learned this when we look at our timing. Our 2 to 4 o'clock is our slowest time in our oil change. And I think it's simply because people have to go pick up their kids from school, or it's during the meat of the afternoon. And so we're like, it was that moment we were like, Sonic is a genius.
Oh, yeah.
They said, hey, let's drive more people right before they go to pick up their kids or right after they pick up their kids. We'll do half-price drinks with the hope that they get some tater tots and a hot dog and all this stuff. It's like, Huh, okay, we learned from Sonic. We'll take that and go.
You know, a second level, and we haven't done this yet, but a second level that we learned from Sonic is they built the happy hour from 2 to 4, removed all friction points.
Yeah.
That was rocking and rolling. I'm sure it was a loser for them, whatever.
Yeah.
But then they saw we got to We've got to grow our audience and our usage on the app.
Yep.
So people would come to love the half price
Yep.
drinks, and now they said in order to do that, you got to order it on the app.
So it was phased, right?
So it was phased.
Let's get them hooked on this.
Yes.
And offer a great deal.
Yeah.
And then, hey, we need them more in the app, so let's do a bonus points, rewards points.
Sure.
We see them everywhere, right?
So then they're used to using the app, and they've already got the account created. So then it's easy when they're thinking about I need something quick. Or I
Yeah.
need, so
Or then Sonic says, hey, we need some more traffic, and then say, oh, we have this whole app full of users.
Boom.
Ding! Hey, guys, we got an offer. We're extending half an hour to 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock.
So anytime you can connect that, and you brought up the point, and that's kind of why I jumped on that, is, hey, if we give something, we should get something in return.
Right.
Sonic was doing that.
Yep.
Now, it was a couple steps down the road.
Yep.
It's not always necessarily that first step.
No.
You got to build it, build the trust, build the want, the
Yep.
urgency, and then you can start asking for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
The value exceeded the price, right?
It did.
It's like, hey, this makes sense.
It did. So I think the things there, and I know then we got to move. That's been a good one. Is hey, you've got to connect locally. You got to know your boundaries on what you can ask local competitors versus what you can ask people outside locality. And you got to get around that competitive nature, and then you got to know who to talk to, within your organization about it versus not about it, and then when to go forward and when not to.
Absolutely. You just got to see that and be able to study and realize. Don't beat down anything that you see. Never discredit or devalue anything that you see in your area, but be willing to put in a little bit of time and say, hey, maybe that won't work for me, but this, altering it to fit your business, your lifestyle, will work better here.
Absolutely. How about our fun fact of
It
the
is
week?
time.
This one's automotive. You
It
know
is
it is.
time.
Hey, what type of engine is the most common in passenger cars today?
Yeah.
Passenger cars. Now, I hope that our media team didn't put this together as a trick question, because by passenger cars, if they mean sedans, it's going to change my answer.
Yeah,
But if it's
I was
overall,
It's just like cars.
okay,
cars,
I was
don't
going too
know.
deep there. All right, so here's your options. The rotary engine. You got to love a good rotary engine. The electric, internal combustion, or steam.
Locomotive.
I know. It's like we're at the
Well, I
Henry
mean,
Ford
it's
Museum.
passenger cars. It could be passenger trains.
Could be. Okay.
All right. What
We'll
engine
come
is
back
most
to it.
common in the passenger car?
Sorry.
Rotary, electric, internal combustion, or steam? We'll come back.
All right, on the same subject, we want to take you to a deeper dive off of some leveraging. Okay? We want to talk about leveraging off of competitive intelligence for a strategic advantage. Those are a bunch of fancy words. But when we start pulling back the layers there, we start identifying where is our competitive advantage, and then strategically, competitive intelligence, and then strategically, how do we use that for our advantage? I'll start this off.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm going to start with our Lewis guarantee.
Break it down for me.
Our Lewis guarantee. And then I'm going to give you a manufacturer example I had in my office last week. Our Lewis guarantee, we looked for where could we have an advantage over all the competition with our guarantee versus somebody else. Because plenty of people out there have guarantees. One of the things we did is, and you guys have heard us talk about this, it's a quantifiable number, whether it's on a new and it's a 10-year 120, if it's on a pre-owned and a 5-year 60. The next one is where we really gained. We said we can really win here. When we looked at our pre-owned vehicles that were between 50 and 100,000 miles, and we said, let's put a 3-year, 36,000 mile powertrain, it positioned us where a consumer could buy a car for a lower monthly budget, but still have some peace of mind in case something went on. So when we looked at the CPO programs from all the manufacturers, and we looked at all of our competitive landscape, nobody offered a true term, true mileage 3-year 36 on a 80,000 mile vehicle. They just didn't. And when you stop and you think about that, that's a huge advantage that we can strategically use that our salespeople then have that verbiage. Last week I was meeting with a manufacturer, and they happened to pitch the CPO program. You know how that goes. And they're like, no, just listen to me. Don't keep me out of your office yet. I was like, okay, go ahead. They're like, we got some really good stuff, and we revamped it, and we had the best CPO program out there in America. And I'm like, okay, go through it. And for a CPO program at a manufacturer level, they had done a lot of good adjustments.
Yep.
And I listened to the whole thing. Almost 99% of all CPO programs from the manufacturer retro back to day one or mile one of ownership. Okay, where ours starts at day one of the new owner. So he got done, and I said, "What do you do on 80,000 mile vehicles?" He's like, "No, we really looked at that too. It's got a 6 month, 6,000 mile powertrain." And I said, "That's cute." I said, "Do you remember the Lewis guarantee that we talked about?" He's like, "Yeah, I've heard you talk about that." I said, "Do you realize all the way up to 100,000 miles, you get a 3-year, 36,000 mile powertrain at no charge?" And he's like, "Yeah, but that retros back to day one." I said, No. It starts now, true term, true mileage. He goes, "I'm done." He goes, "My pitch is over."
Yeah.
He's like, "I can't win with you guys."
But the reason that ours is so much better is because we analyzed all of those.
All of those.
And it shows like everyone offers this, right?
Yes.
He's like, okay, let's put it
Let's
up
not
on the
match it.
wall. Let's not match it. Let's not get in the same space. We're in the same space, but let's find. And it was like, whoop, there it is. There it is. It's like our dealer OMG people say, hey, let's go an inch wide and a mile deep. Like, there's our opportunity. Let's go all in.
Go all
So
in.
no one can know, the fact that it's got 80,000 miles, 90,000 miles. The manufacturer said at 36,000
We're
miles,
done.
you're done. Like you were on your own. They built the car. They got billions in it. And we said, which we've learned right through it. Like we've had some high claim rates, and we have to do a more thorough inspection. But we said, there it is right there. We're going to take care of it when the manufacturer said they won't, and no one else will. But I will tell you to err with caution before you just like put the thermometer in the steak to say, hey, is this really good? It took some time.
A lot of time.
The customer won't just say, you know what, you offer more, I'll pay you more.
No.
They still want to pay less
They do.
and get what you're offering. It's like, hey, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So you have to keep that in mind.
I think in the U.S. especially, consumers are so inundated with offers and promotions and reasons to buy that a lot of times it takes a little bit of like, no, hang on. Let's walk through this, what this really means to you to be able to cut through the clutter.
Yeah.
Yes.
To be able to show them that advantage. And we've spent tons of time training on that. Two things when we found that option, we said, bingo, there it is we looked at it from a competitive. But then two, and y'all can remember this, we still didn't launch it. We looked at it from a customer's eyes.
Yeah.
If I'm the customer, how do I truly get what I'm being told? How frictionless is it?
Yeah.
Because that's how you build a long-term business. And that's one of the things we saw when everybody else said engines for life or lifetime warranty. When we got our legal team, that's how deep we got. When we got our legal teams involved, they said, hang on, legally in an insurance contract, they got to make you define down in the details what lifetime means. You have to quantify it. So even though they could say lifetime, they had to put down there what it actually was.
Yeah.
And then another big one that we eliminated, and at first it sounds like you should do this because it creates retention. Most other ones out there, you have to come back for an annual inspection. And you have to do what they said they needs to be done to keep the warranty valid.
So all recommended maintenance.
All recommended maintenance.
To be done.
It's like they had you by the tail. It's
They
like
did.
You have to do what we tell you to do, and we can tell you to do whatever we want.
So when we looked at it through the scope of business, it sounds great.
Yeah.
Because they're in your shop more.
Yeah.
But through the scope of the customer who's buying and trusting in you, they're like, oh man, here it is again. One of these snake oil deals.
What if I'm traveling, or what if I'm here? Like,
What if I have to move?
what if I move? They said you had to do every single oil change there.
Yep.
Some of them, I was like, oh gosh, like every service interval, every single, and it had to be by the book.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that's not a good customer experience.
Again, from a business point of view, on paper, do you want that? Absolutely, sign me up. But then when you look at it from the customer, who is the one that actually will be coming, it's
You
like,
lose
whoa,
Mary.
hang on. I wouldn't like that.
In a world of trying to have a good business and have good CSI, where CSI is such a hard thing, because in today's world, more and more people want to share experiences, and you generally don't get the whole story. That was like, that's a nightmare. Do not do that, right? You're just going to get fried at every friction point is an opportunity the customer has a bad experience, and they're going to tell all the friends, and they're going to tell the whole world. It's like, we don't need help with that.
I'll throw you another one unless y'all have more to comment on that one. I'll tell you where we saw, and y'all resonate with this, we saw an opportunity that the customer could win, and then deeper layered we could win by offering up this additional savings is on the sales side. We know that our best pre-owned vehicles come from new car trades. We know that. We get to see it. They sell faster. They have a story. They're worth more. And then we know if we get that, and Shelby, you were just going over this in a meeting with the managers, is how much that really means to our business, from parts sales, service sales, the next one to sell, the next one they trade, the whole thing. We said, why don't we offer up an additional, what we'll call as an internal rebate for trade assistance?
Yes.
So customers that are looking at new vehicles, if you've got a trade-in, we'll offer you an additional discount or rebate above and beyond all manufacturers because you have a trade-in.
And we learned that from the manufacturer, because
We
every
did.
once in a while they'd come out with the trade assistance and saw some pretty good traction to it. It's
Yes.
like, why can't we do that on our own? Like, let's offer another $1,000. In the last couple of months, we've had even more money than that to say, hey, here's how we're more competitive because we need the trade-ins. We'd rather give you more money than go to the auction and pay for the cars.
bet.
So let's just do an internal trade assistance.
You bet. So that was an opportunity where we got what we needed. They got more for it. And overall, it really put us in a position to be able to strategically beat the competition, customer wins, and we win.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been big of going through both of those, whether it be trade assistance or be the Lewis guarantee of really knowing. And once you get into the fine details, you can confidently then teach your team to be able to go out there. And it's the day and age where you have to sell the whole process of it, so then they can go out there and really be able to do that.
And then some of those things took years. Like, you see the opportunity, and in an age of sometimes you have to move very fast, and some of the things we move very fast in, but in a tidal wave where it continues to ripple, that took a lot of time of like, okay, what if? Okay, what if? Okay, what else? Who else is doing that? And just peeling the layers back. Don't give up on it. Like, have the endurance to see through it, but then just to make sure that you vetted all the things. So, like, okay, this is a good experience. Just like Sonic, when they open the app, it shows here, how did they get it? How did they claim it? They don't have to talk to a manager. They don't need a coupon code, and so those things, that took time. And so you have to make sure that you're pointing it the right direction.
You do. And I think you run that in business. If you just have enough filters in place where you say, great idea, what are we really trying to accomplish today, and what are we trying to accomplish in the future?
Yeah.
What is it? Does it fill those? Do we have any heat from it? Are there going to be any friction points? And we have things that have some friction to it. But overall, the good outweighs the bad, and we just got to do a better job training than to be able to get through that.
Absolutely.
For sure. That's some good stuff. But that always comes out by studying, creatively getting in the room with the right people, that who's on your creative team, and go, how could we win here?
Yeah.
What's been successful? What hadn't been successful? What's the customer looking for? Let's start spitballing those ideas. And then let's sleep on that and see how it is. And like you said, there are things where we need to react fast because then the window moves.
Yes.
And we have those,
Yeah.
but we also have long-term plays. Lewis Guarantee, long-term play. And that took a lot of strategic thought.
And it probably brings some more merit and weight to the situation, because then our internal employee, not only customers on the outside, they can see whenever lever needs to be pulled and you move quick, but whenever something big comes, and know we've taken the time to vet it and really make sure that it makes sense, not only for the customers, but to also be able to help any internally as well.
Yeah, I think so. And I think some of that we learned from a really young age.
Yes.
I mean, I can remember our dad, the amount of times that he would make us think about a decision. And now I find myself saying that to my son. And I'm like, it's coming 360 degrees.
Well,
I made
make
him
a circle.
Stuff.
I made him wait overnight, unless it's something that has to be, and this is a great lesson, unless it has to be made right now. And it's not just an impulse. Like you set your amount on whatever it is, and think about it overnight. And if you still feel the same in the morning, then okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
It allows the different part of your brain to work there, and that's helped us strategically.
No doubt about that. Just like, and as you age, as you mature, I should say, you might
Yes.
mature faster than you age, or vice versa. You might never mature and just age, but that starts to make more sense.
does.
Of like, okay, that's what my dad was talking about. All right, and you have to know. And I've missed a lot of opportunities to purchase things or to be a part of things by slow playing something.
Yeah.
Think of a house in today's day and age. Like if you tried to slow play it and let them stew, you just get a bing from Zillow. It's like, a house just went under contract.
Sold.
And you're like, son of a gun! I was going to offer him $250. It's like, no. So you kind of got to understand the landscape that you're in.
You do. But that comes back to other episodes we've talked about, getting the right people around you.
Yeah.
Because then you can bounce it off of those people. In
Hey, what
different
do you
industry.
think? Here's this
What do you think?
opportunity. Here's what it is. And they're like, oh, that's unheard of. Go.
You just
And you're
make
like,
sure
are you
whoever
sure?
you're asking about that
Scrub.
is at a level where you want to go to.
That is really important. It's funny you say that because you don't need to be getting your advice from, the guy at the gas station pump that you don't know. And you were talking about, vetting things earlier in this episode, talking about, hey, understand, got to kind of be careful of who you share the current struggles with.
Oh, for sure.
Of like, hey, here's our current, what the competition's doing. And then they might know the competition, and you didn't talk bad about them. You just say, hey, I got to find a way to find an upper leg so my local people stay with me instead of going to the $9.99 oil change. They might sit there like Unger, just hearing everything you say, and then they run straight over the competition like, hey, Lewis is coming after you.
Yeah.
It's no different than, I'm going down a different segment here, but I'll just say this. It's no different than if you're married and, as a husband, you and your wife have had a fight or a disagreement or this or that. Don't go to work and find another female to sit down and have the conversation to air your dirty laundry
Don't have a
about.
work wife or husband.
You know what I
Just
mean?
doesn't
Like it's
work.
just not going to work out well. So same thing you're saying is you don't air out, here's what we found about our competitors, we need to figure out a way to do it or we're not going to do that. You got to make sure who you're sharing that with.
Yeah, so that's when we say it takes time to gain some trust because they've probably been burned before, and if you haven't been burned, you will be burned. So
Man,
you want to
it's
get in those
hard.
circles, but and you can be mad at that person. I mean, you should be, but it's a waste of energy too to be mad at them. So you're just like, you know what? It's my fault for not vetting the person I was talking.
And you have different levels of relationships, and you know that. You have people that you still like and you hang out with,
Surface level.
but you're not discussing your finances with them.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
And then as the farther you go up in the importance of decisions, that circle gets really small.
Pretty small. It's pretty small because what'll happen, and we've had it in our business, is one person was complaining about something with their pay, and what they didn't realize is the person they were complaining to actually didn't have it as good as they had it.
Oh, yeah.
And they were
We
complaining.
had that happen.
And it was just like, so then he came away from it, he or she came away from it and was like, they were complaining about that, but all I heard him was say X percentage, and I was thinking, I don't even get that percentage.
I'll tell you another
And then the
story.
last guy was like, you get paid to work here?
So that's a great example. I'll give you one more because our listeners need stories. I'm not going to say names here because this one gets
Go
a
ahead,
little
tell
bit
me
deep.
financial.
So we had an employee giving others investment advice.
What?
Okay, on like
Charles Schwab?
what they should do with their money and how they could make this money and this and that. And they had a group of people that he was really pouring into, and they were all fired up about it. Well, passes 2 to 4 weeks. Okay, fortunately they hadn't made any of those moves yet. 2 to 4 weeks, and that person giving the advice out goes and tries to buy a vehicle. They can't get approved because they've not handled their own finances. And it was an awakening, because you know how word travels. It was an awakening to those that he'd been talking to about how to handle and invest their money.
So check below the surface. You know what I'm saying is we're
That's all I
showing
gotta
under the hood.
say.
Just pop the hood, check underneath there.
Yeah. I probably
All
did say right there.
No, that was good. You know, of understanding that, just making sure, look at the competition, and then see
Yeah.
where your information's coming
And we
from.
got pretty deep there on talking about relationships, and then you'll go on with your fun fact. But I think the point is, and we took a detour, but it was a good detour, was because you always have to have the right people around you.
Yep.
You can't do it by yourself.
You can't. And those, it's not a one-size-fits-all group. Like we've talked about before, we've got idea people, we got doers, we've got financial people, we have people that are in the industry locally, we have people in the industry that are non-locally, and each of those we can ask different advice from.
And a lot of it's virtual. You know, sometimes it's just one way.
It is.
You know, you're getting a lot of your stuff from, you know, people. We've talked about this before of how you get your content to level up.
Yep.
I'm not talking about your content, how you feed your brain. So you're seeing what the competitor's doing. You know, you follow your industry or business, and then you're seeing this, and you get that all the information. So then when you have a conversation, you're able to go through that and dive through that. So
Because if you never get that, this cup right here that you try to take for your team and you try to motivate and fill them up, if you haven't taken the time to fill this up, what's in it for everybody else?
Nothing.
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 Absolutely nothing. Nothing's in there.
Yeah.
You need that sucker overflowing, but the only way you can do that is prioritizing yourself and being around those people.
Fill it up. Hey, and shout out to our cups. Local company, Paisley Co. Got these cups and cups for us. So we got our swag, Crossroad Conversations. All right, what type of engine is most common in passenger cars today? We got rotary engine, electric, internal combustion, and steam engine.
Gotta be steam.
It's
I'm
not.
kidding.
It's got to be internal
It's
combustion.
It's internal combustion engine.
Okay.
Yep. Electric is gaining ground, but just in the landscape of understanding this, electric, I don't know the exact, so don't call an NADA on me, but
Taylor's gonna check
it's
it.
less than 5% of current vehicles on the road
Are electric.
are electric vehicles. So internal combustion, people are burning
It's tried and
petrol.
true.
It's tried and true. All right, ethical competitive practices.
1.4%. Sorry, I had to go.
Is that Arkansas?
It's 1.4%.
Arkansas is probably
No.
half percent.
No.
Yes.
Arkansas is
on the
ranked
road
second
in the
least
U.S.
in-
It's
there.
a natural state, though.
Now it is ticking up. Your 8.7 of new cars sold last year was electric.
8%. Okay, that's where I
That's
got my
units in
5.
operation.
Yeah, but I
Units
still
in
take that-
operation is 1.4% on the
UIO,
road.
units operation, 1.4%. Last year, we saw big growth of 8%. And a lot of that came from plug-in hybrid,
It did.
but still EV was the
You know,
trend
when you
up.
say 1% is very small, that's still over 4 million vehicles, because units in operation is 292 million vehicles on the road in the
And
U.S.
that's why we run a good deal on oil changes, because there's 290
Yes.
million
So still over 4 million.
Yeah.
We're in it, but that's not the majority right now.
Wow. Okay.
Wow. All right, so you know it's the internal combustion engine. Ethical, competitive practices, and maintaining your own edge. Keyword, your own edge. And then also the ethical part of that. Long term, 79 years in the business. Our father, his dad, and his dad's dad, 4 generations, long term, right? If it's not right, don't do it.
Don't.
If you can make a quick buck,
It's not
don't do
worth
it.
it.
Like, treat others the way you want to be treated. It's so simple and easy. So, distinguishing the difference between healthy competition and unethical practices.
I think how you started that out right there, if we needed to sum up this whole subject,
That just
the
hits nail
way
on the
you
head.
separate whether it was ethical or not was, is it short term or long term?
Yes.
There are plenty of people out there, and unfortunately this happens in every industry, is that people, they call it gray, they call it bending the lines a little bit. It's not ethical, okay? They're not holding up to their end of the bargain.
Yeah.
They make the quick buck, okay? They drive a lot of traffic in, and there's a couple of subjects we'll talk about here. We can first talk about just on the advertising side of it to draw people in, that they'll put stuff out there that then And we have them too that you have to qualify for, but they put unrealistic stuff out there. So then when the customer gets there, that they hope that they can just talk them through it.
That's the idea. They go to classic old school car sales or whatever you're selling, and then it's not obtainable. And they're like, we advertise and we got them there, and then we're just going to throw their keys on the roof, and we're going to
Just wear them
confuse
out.
them in the numbers, and we're going to wear them out. Then they're going to be like, hey, if we can split the difference, can we make a deal? You've already spent 8 hours here today. That's not a, like, yeah. You know, in the rankings, we'll see sometimes this person just spiked. It's like, what the heck? And so we go to their website and check it out. And we just secret shop a little bit. We're like, what is this? And so we have to combat it.
Sure.
Because our localities are all close enough.
Yeah.
And so we're like, what's going on here? It's like, well, did you know that car has 5,000 miles?
Mm-hmm.
And did you know you have to qualify for X, Y, Z, T, R, A, O, and you must have been born on January 1st.
Yeah.
He's like, that, and they're like, well, no, I talked to him on the phone. That's what they said they would do. He's like, well, no, they're into the trickery. That why would they tell you, why would they give it up on the phone?
Yeah.
No, they're going to get you in the store,
Yes.
and then you're going to be like, dang it, I knew it. And it's like, no, here we are. Here's what we offer. It's fair. It's competitive. And you get this for no cost. And you get this no for cost. And we've been doing this for so long, and that shouldn't mean anything, but it means everything to say that we will still be here.
Yeah.
And sometimes they forget that until then they have an issue, and they're like, hey, it's me, remember? And it's like, yeah, we're still here, and we'll still take care of you. And like, well, this and this and this and this and this and this and this. It's like, well, remember when you just kicked me in the teeth here, here, and here, and here, and here? Why should I help you?
Exactly.
I'm going to, but
No, and there's a whole lot of confidence in doing business that way because you have a wall to stand back against that you can be, hey, no, I'm confidently knowing this is what we're doing. If you're doing the other business practices, your eyes are in the back of your head constantly looking over your shoulder.
I think the slippery slope there is when you've got a customer and they spend 8 hours and they're wore out and it's the only so-and-so red one, in the region, the customer ends up going forward with it. They're not pleased about it. They're not happy about it, but they get the sale. And then the salesperson, the sales manager are like, see, that worked. We got to walk them through that, but that worked. What they don't realize is, even though they left in that brand new red vehicle, as soon as they talk to everybody about it, they talk about how bad the experience was, and they're never coming back.
Yeah.
So that's the short versus the long.
the
there.
battle versus the war. You won the battle, but you didn't win the war, right?
And unfortunately, especially as a leader and entrepreneur out there, you have that responsibility when you're leading people and growing people that are naive. You take somebody that's in their young 20s just learning and trying to absorb it all. You're teaching them bad habits. They don't know any better.
Yeah.
They
have no clue. Right? A guy's been doing it a long time. You get a new person here, and they're just eager to learn everything.
Yeah.
And you're creating a problem.
You really
Your
are.
culture is slowly eroding.
So I'm going to flip to another side of it here, and then I know y'all take this and run with it, is on the finance side of it. So and I got to give a brief overview of what we do for everybody listening, is when you come and purchase a vehicle from us, we're connected as preferred lenders with multiple different financing sources, a little over 26. Credit unions, local banks, national banks, which we've gone through a vetting process where we can sign all the paperwork. We submit the information over to them, so you don't have to go through the bank. The same process happens like if you would have gone in the bank. We're just very efficient at it, and we can get somebody approved and signed faster than you can walk into any bank.
Saves time.
Saves time.
Yep.
But we've gone through the vetting process. They trust us to be accurate with what's going over.
Yep.
Here's what we'll find. Customer went to another store,
Yep.
and there's two different scenarios that happen. Customer went to another store, they couldn't get approved, and salesperson, sales manager, finance manager, whoever says, well, just put it in your buddy's name. Just put it in your grandparents' name and use their credit. That's called a straw purchase in our business.
Trying to make a quick deal.
Trying to make a quick deal
Fly
because
to the bank.
it shows in our bank contracts that we will do the vetting and we will not represent to them people that are not the true driver of the vehicle.
Correct.
It says that whoever we submit will be a driver. And I'm not talking about co-signing. I'm talking about the primary person. We put it in somebody else's name.
Yep.
So there's one for y'all to talk about. The second one, and one of y'all can take each one of these. The second one is where a finance manager will change either time on job or the amount of money they make monthly. because they know they have a credit score high enough that they can run them through the process. But during an audit, again, ethically, we didn't represent correctly, they can then pull that relation. Again, that's a short-term game. So each of those subjects, one of y'all can take each one of them.
So the tricky part of constantly hiring new salespeople as we grow, and then people find that sales isn't their forte, so we're building that person through there. Two-way tricky. One, they've heard someone else somewhere down the road say, hey, they need to make $2,600 or whatever it is. And so they're like, I don't know exactly what my income is. He's like, would you say it's $2,600? They lead them into that.
Yeah.
As a salesperson.
What's the most it's ever been?
What's the most it's ever been, right? And so then they lead them into that, and so they put incorrect information. Or on the flip side, the customer comes in who's shopping multiple different places, and they got taught or kind of coached into an approval. So then now the salesperson is against you as a manager saying, no, they're approved at Arvest. Why can't we be approved at Arvest? And it's like, well, let's dissect this. And it's like, well, I can see on the approval they submitted over that shows he makes $2,800. Right here it shows $2,200. So what's right? And he's like, well, I divided it by this, times it by that. It's like, we can't help.
Yeah.
And so they get upset because they're going to miss a deal because you can't get approved on that. But you have to know we're a long-term game, and that's tough as a manager to hold your ground of true and real.
Sure.
And also keep your salesperson on board because they might be down the road. I'm not saying anybody does, but they do. Fluffing the numbers to make quick business.
Yep.
To make a quick buck. And so a salesperson, if they don't have the backbone, and then the backbone doesn't go to the manager, and then all the way up to the very top, if they don't preach, hey, here's what we're going to do, I don't care how many deals we make or miss, here's how we'll do business. And this is the only way we'll do business. So when the auditor does come, because they will, they can say, here's all of our, look at it all.
Sure.
It's all here. Here's what we have. Here's pay stubs. Here's the stuff. And then you can sleep good at night.
Absolutely.
But you get tested every day in that.
You do. And then there's a lot of emotions involved, especially in a competitive market, because they may go down the road and actually purchase and you miss the deal.
Yep.
And you got to walk everybody emotionally through it. It's a long-term game, and it'll come back around.
And sometimes the bank will call you. If they leave, they'll call you and they'll say, hey, such and such is down the road, but this doesn't look right.
So that gets on the income side, on the job time. Well, what about what I was referring to about the straw purchase?
Yeah, straw purchasing. This business is so emotional. And even us as brothers have all been in the situation that your emotions get in there and you see a deal and you see something. So of a cosigner, they'll get a cosigner, and more times than not, if it's a grandparent that just always wants to help out the kids. And so they'll get a grandparent. They've got great credit. They don't necessarily have the income, so that's the other part of it. But then they'll just be like, no, it's just for them. No, it's just for them. And that's where you have to have taught the principals, say, no, it's not for them. It's for little Johnny, and he has to be on there. Now, they can co-sign. Now, every time I offer a solution,
Sure.
absolutely we'll take that credit. They have to be on there with them.
Yep.
No different than I had one from one of our other lots the other day. It bought a GT500. Manager called me and said, hey, it's sold. And I said, well, this is everything on the car. We weren't going to do this, but okay, let's move forward. He's like, well, no, it's sold. I talked to the guy, and he's going to race it this weekend. And I said, hold on. Said, this doesn't sound right. Well, no, they're, and I could hear the salesperson in the background said, no, they're married. And I said, I don't think they're married. Lo and behold, they get here, they're not married. I don't let him buy the car without him going on there.
Sure.
And he kept saying, no, we're married, no, we're married. His credit was not good. They didn't get approved with both of him being on there as well. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to make that tough decision because we're in it for the long haul. I don't care about the single deal right now. And a lot of times you have trouble dealing with that because some employees are not in it for the long haul. They could care less. They want money
I'm talking
right
about rolling
now.
up the carpet.
They want it right
They'll
now.
roll up and be gone, and you'll be stuck
It's you.
with all the stuff, and it's you, right?
It's you.
But not only being, let's talk about long term there, especially if we got somebody, because nothing's wrong with a cosigner.
Absolutely.
So if we take somebody
not.
that's got bad credit and they're trying to do a straw purchase in the other, you actually do them a better service if you talk them into both people going on there, even if it's a higher interest rate, because not only do you sell something, you help the person with the bad credit reestablish their credit, so then they're not in the same boat 3 years down the road.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're setting them up with a whole path to be able to, yes, fix everything what they're currently in.
That's a really good point. And so some of the points I have here on this of ethical and maintaining your own edge, and it all circles back to building relationships. You know, so in that situation of helping them understand, hey, here's how we're going to do this to be able to help you out. It's ethical, it's correct, it's proper. You got to sell the manager on that, sell the salesperson on that, and then ultimately the customer in the end. And that's what sets you apart from competitors.
It does.
You know, like, son, you're not going to be able to eat this peep right now, but if we wait till tomorrow, it'll be 12 peeps, and here's why that's more beneficial.
That's so good.
That's right. And the customers that will listen and we walk through that, there's huge success stories. I can remember
why I buy from you.
You got that success story about the CAC customer that ends up buying the new Raptor.
Yes. Come in looking for a Raptor Super Duty. We started out, I don't remember the first car, but
They're Fiesta.
it was a Fiesta or a Fusion.
High interest rate.
High interest rate, 24% interest rate. We put them on a short term to be able, so it wasn't really strung out, but they needed a relationship.
Yes.
And not a relationship, they needed a
Build their credit,
transportation.
yeah.
Yes.
Build their credit. And we said, hey, and so if you give that to a salesperson who's not really good at it, they're like, no way. They came here for a Raptor or an F-350, and when I'm going to show them a Fiesta, it's like you're offering them a solution, right?
Sure.
You know, it's like, hey, this is a good car. It comes with the Lewis guarantee, and then let's work on this. And so the understanding is like, hey, right now you're buying a car for transportation, plus you're paying to rebuild your credit. We're going to report to the bureaus. And so in less than 4 years, went from a Fiesta or Fusion, then came in to buy an F-150, and we're able to go standard financing. Then was able to do an F-350 like $90,000 through Ford Credit. Got the Savine rate of like a 5.9 from 24%.
Yep.
And then in the end ended up getting a Raptor at a prime rate because we long-term gain helped them.
Raving fan now.
Yeah. And that's 79 years worth of business is having tough conversations, but providing a solution. And so customers, we have customers that say, hey, I come here because of this. I come here because of that.
That's so different than your point you talked about, Matt, earlier, which is understanding that sometimes you got to pause. You got to pause, and it's not fun. It's not fun to be able to make the call. But if you're going to be the leader of your business, you got to be willing to do that to know that you're going to set up for better success down the road.
Hey, I know we need to wrap this thing up, but when you were talking earlier, and then we got on a sidebar conversation, but talking about competitive from dealership to dealership or business to business, it's also on your employees.
Oh, that's true.
You know, so on the employee side, when someone says, hey, I'm offering this, this, and this, and this, and it was unobtainable, we see that on the employee side, whether it's a salesperson, technician, highest turn rate, you know, and they say, hey, technician, toolboxes are on wheels. Of companies, no different than they say, hey, it's $28,000 off a new Jeep, come and get it. We know it's not real. That technicians, so have your backbone and know what you're offering is good because you've done the research. Because we'll see people guarantee hours, and we'll pay $85 an hour, and we'll give you an apprentice, and the hours don't matter that you actually work. And then what happens?
Then they leave.
Then they leave, right? They leave that place, and they come back and they're like, it wasn't real.
That's right.
You know, so do your competitive research to know that you're relative, but then stand your ground to say, no, I offer this, this, and this, and this, and I know it's competitive, and I know it's good.
Be
and I know
confident
I'll
in
be
it.
here.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, rolling into one thing, I got a question for both y'all, and you can see, but if you could change one thing about your day-to-day in business, what would it be?
Change one thing about your day-to-day business. As an optimist, it's hard to know
That's
that. Because generally, golly, Craig, you're throwing us deep here. You know, as an optimist, generally, there's no bad situation. There's no bad scenario. I mean, there is, but
I
you
would
don't
say
give it
something
the
more
power.
so that's reoccurring day to day that like this either faults you or slows you down or anything
well, there's plenty
else.
of things that fault me or slow me down, and most of them are my fault. But I would say that dealing with an issue with somewhere in the process of, I wish that people before they burned us in a manufacturer survey or a Google review, because We respond to every single one with my phone number, with your phone number, with your phone number and email, and say, hey, we'd love to talk to you. Yeah. If they gave us an opportunity to hear the scenario, and then we said, hey, can we explain why this was? We do apologize. It's our fault we didn't transparently tell you why. Because the problem is no one's messing up on purpose.
No.
And no one's not tightening something on purpose. So I wish that people would reach out and allow us to help them walk through that process before they just fried everything with hopes of gain and nothing to gain.
Yeah, I think that's a great point of yours, and I'll kind of come from that from a different angle. Is if I could change something, it would be a better understanding for our customers to understand we're not the manufacturer.
You don't build the car?
We don't build the car. We understand that we're the relationship and the channel to get to the manufacturer, but that's all we are. We're willing to work together with you. A lot of times when we try to fix a car, and maybe it doesn't fix it immediately then, that's coming from advice from the manufacturer.
They tell you how to fix it.
They tell us how to fix it. They tell you what part to put on. And we know the customer's frustrated, but if we could change it, they understand we're in this relationship together to try to equal, because we don't get paid if the vehicle doesn't get fixed.
Correct.
But so many times, especially in this industry, with the amount these vehicles are, the customers assume that we've got these unlimited funds and we've got a direct connection to Detroit, and we don't.
Yep.
We don't. So if there was a frustrating part of the business, that would be that. I don't mind problem solving, but it's very hard to problem solve stuff that you don't have control over.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, great episode today. Really dove into all the different sets of going over in business of ethical practices and being really in the long-term game of knowing that sometimes you got to hold and be able to work through that. But always check us out on lewissuperstore.com and on Crossroads Conversations podcast. Hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to give it a like, share it with your friends and family, visit our website, and send us some questions. We want to know what you'd like to hear, who you'd like to hear from, and what you want to see, or maybe even some questions for us to answer about either the automotive industry or just business in general.